I know you have been in business, Bob, for a very long time. Remind me, how many companies have you had? And how long has VidaFair been alive and strong?
Don't make me sound too old, Jess. People are going to. I'm already a dinosaur enough as it is.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. At the Bold Business Podcast, we are normalizing important conversations. Yes, there are tips. Yes, there are ways to solve problems. More importantly, are going to be what do you need for yourself to be able to solve those problems and make the most of the education, the training, and the programs that you are already using. This is a supplement to that. It can sit on top of it, fuel your soul, fuel your mind, and most importantly, regardless of where you're at on your journey. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe you're ready to scale. Maybe you're going through reinvention. The conversations we are having will help you at each of those stages. So hang around, see what's going on, and I look forward to seeing you engaging with our videos.
You are listening to the Bold Business Podcast, where you will hear firsthand experiences about what it really takes to ensure market relevance and your company's future.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jess Dewell, and today I'm joined by Bob Bowdon, the founder of VidaFair. Bob's an entrepreneur who's built multiple companies and is now on a mission to change how creators and audiences connect without the subscription fatigue. If you're looking for fresh ideas on business models, creative thinking, and building something bold, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. I know you have been in business, Bob, for a very long time. And remind me, how many companies have you had? I know, right? And how long has VidaFair been alive and strong?
Don't make me sound too old, Jess. People are going to. I'm already a dinosaur enough as it is. I don't. The age.
But how would he read that we're asking this? No.
Okay. Anyway, I really just started I guess technically three companies. All right. You got me there. So this would be the third company. One of them was a nonprofit, by the way, a nonprofit group called Choice Media that I ran for 10 years. That was a vertical news group about one subject matter, which was education policy. So we like to say the way ESPN just talked about sports and CNBC just talks about markets, we just talked about schools and education policy.
Yeah. And
And before that, I had another company, Bowdon Media, which was a part of a documentary film production company that I had that was pretty successful. We had a film on Netflix and distributed by Warner Brothers, et cetera. So, yes, VidaFair would be the third.
here's an interesting thing that I was thinking about the other day. I was at an event and I was watching young business owners in many different industries, right? So some are makers, some are service providers, some are technology companies. And they were between the ages of, let's say, 30 and 50. What I recognized was there was this other group of people, and I actually identified more with this other group of people. And maybe it's because of my background. And I think you and I have this in common, which is the group of people that were around when computers were part of our world, yet not online. And then when computers and technology got us online and connected in a whole new way with opportunities and the way we work and the things that we're doing, we got to be creative in a way that most didn't. And now we're in the generations of the group I just spoke of, especially on the 30-ish side, that they've always had technology. And so they've never had the novelty of something new. And I was thinking about this specifically for our conversation because, Bob, I was like, some of the reason for our success and longevity, I think has to do it directly correlates to our willingness to be creative because we've seen something since it existed.
This is an interesting angle, and I think it does apply at least to my path and journey for creating VidaFair, and I'll tell you why. I remember when the media websites for this dinosaur term called newspapers, when they used to be new, and people would say, wow, no one's going to buy the Washington Post if you can get all the stories online for free. No one's going to buy all of them. USA Today, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Houston Chronicle, Denver Post, name your local paper, Chicago Tribune. No one's going to pay for them if you can get the stories for free. And it became widely understood at some point they'll have to have a business model for this thing. And I thought the world was going to go one direction and it went another. I thought the world was going to go to the micropayment model that would let anybody in the world pay 11 cents for this particular news story in the Chicago Tribune or the Seattle Post Intelligencer. Wasn't that a newspaper that went out of business, to use your area?
Hey, well, you may be right. That might be before my time here.
There you go. So I thought this story might be 20 cents. That story might be 50 cents. Another story might be 5 cents. But that you would be able to buy content in a micropayment model. And I thought that makes the most sense because maybe they'll also offer a subscription separately. But my prediction was wrong. The world went the other way. It went to subscription-only model in so many ways. And basically, what you just laid out is that some people, like me, saw this world come in and assumed it was gonna handle monetization in one kind of way. And then when it didn't, we had our own sort of imagination to compare against the reality. Whereas if it was just always your reality, the subscription model was the default monetization for all content everywhere because we all just subscribe to Netflix or we all just subscribe to Spotify or we all just subscribe to Patreon channels, then we're just thought of that's just the way it always has to be. So yeah, I think that makes some sense. So the platform we built, VidaFair, is not a subscription model. We're team #subscription fatigue, and we believe in being able to pay a la carte for content as a consumer and not have to subscribe to yet another thing and worry about forgetting to unsubscribe to yet another thing.
Add-on services for credit cards, for the tools that help you save money. Now, actually, you just give them, this freaks me out a little. You just give them all this access and they go find all the subscriptions you may have that you can then say yes or no, and they go cancel them for you. That is a service today. And now I'm like, how can we have so much stuff we're paying for and we don't even understand what that is? I know everything. We keep a spreadsheet of our subscriptions and it's always really long. We're like, what else can we get rid of? This is too much to manage. What else can we get rid of?
And especially with services like Adobe Photoshop, where it's now subscription. You can't even just buy that software. Charge me whatever you want, but just charge me once, please. That would be my reaction to that. And Adobe says, no, you got to pay the rest of your life. Even if you forget about our software, or even if you, I don't know, for whatever reason, stop using it for some other reason, maybe your career, you have a different role model in your different job demands, and you stop using it, you're still paying. Yeah, to me, that's, I must think, what's next? Restaurants charging a subscription. How much is the burger? We don't charge by the burger. You have to subscribe to our restaurant. And then you get this many burgers per month. And it just seems like a crazy model that's gone too far. But again, if you just had the option to do both, I could pay this much a la carte or I could subscribe. That I'm comfortable with. And that VidaFair, our company, is comfortable with. We are complementary to a Patreon model where you could ask your followers and friends and fans, you could say, if you want to subscribe, you can do that over here. But if you want to pay a la carte, you can do that over there. So I'm not against subscription as an option. I'm just against subscription as the only option.
I like your distinction there because I'm like, I was going to argue with you and be like, I am, but then you finish and I'm like, no, I'm actually like you. I can't argue with you. I'm telling you what, Bob, that's okay. So let's go back to the innovation piece. You chose a path. There was this time where anything was possible and many options occurred. And by the way, I can go back in time and we can actually say there are a lot of technologies through all of this that came and went and came and went. And there was something that came out of it. And sometimes it was a tool and sometimes it was a way of doing things like payment, right? What we're talking about and what you're focusing on through content curation and access. Now, I'm going to go back to the thing when you decided to make the choice, and even though subscriptions are real, how am I allowed to see about your market share? Because I'm very curious about the demographic and the amount of people that really do want this a la carte option.
Sure. It's certainly true that we consider ourselves still a startup, and we are in many ways competing against big tech. And so we see it that way. Patreon is considered a small player, and they're $1 billion company valuation plus. I think they might be a little bit less than they used to be, but nevertheless, they're still a really big company. Yeah, we consider ourselves still a startup, but to the larger point, I think that, yes, there is a psychological shift that is needed in the space. Most people, they need to, I'll put it this way. So we also want to, a lot of the reason people do subscribe is they find it a form of a volume discount. So if I subscribe to HBO, maybe I binge watch a bunch of seasons of XYZ series, and I feel like I'm watching a lot of content, but I've just paid once. So I feel like in a way I'm getting a kind of a volume discount concept. And so we wanted to do that too. And so we have grain tokens, we call them. It's a form, but you can buy packages. And if you buy larger packages, you pay less per grain, which is our token, what we call it. And so it's a way to still offer volume discounts. It's just that those charges never repeat. You can just buy a package once, and then you can use a little bit at a time, and you pay less because you bought a larger package, or you could just pay purely a la carte. So we wanted to basically offer people this volume discount concept without having a subscription being involved. But yes, there are people that are confused by it, and they may think that they think it's like a crypto scam or something. They're like, "What is this currency you have? These grains?" And we're like, "No, it's not a currency. It's not crypto. It's just priced in dollars. It's not like it trades separate for like a Bitcoin versus dollar chart. You can chart the differences in one currency against another. It's just a token priced in dollars." But yeah, I do think there's to some degree an education that's needed, a psychological shift.
So okay, so let's talk about the psychological shift. We've got this thing that has become commonplace. These subscriptions we have make sense when we consume some amount from them, right? That is actually something that most companies that use subscriptions are saying. They're saying, let's do it this way, and here's what we're doing. And they have specific measurements, right? They have recurring revenue models, they have attrition models, and that's not what they call them. I don't remember what they call their attrition offhand. And then
A lot of the investor class and the venture capital class prefers that, by the way. They see, oh, this is your repeating revenue
Yeah.
that we can better predict or something. But to me, just because a certain financial paradigm is better for the investor class doesn't mean it's better for the customers. And I would rather design a platform around what's best for the customers.
let's break it down. I'm going to go all over the place here because I still want to stay on that track. We may or may not get back to it. But where you just went it makes me think of Clay Christensen's Jobs to be Done. Guess, are you familiar with his work at all?
Remind me.
Okay. So the book I read of he's a Harvard business professor, and he would go out into companies to innovate and do research and development because he saw a whole bunch of products doing all the same thing and they were marketing different, right? So you might have a mop that also is a duster. You might have a mop that self squeezes versus having to put it in something else to squeeze, but they were all mops and they all did the thing. So what he did is he took people out and looked at the products that they were working with and figured out what is the job that this product is hired to do. And so now I was thinking about how you were talking about we've got this normalization and we've got this concept of consumption for value. But I'm wondering if there's actually a different job that we're hiring a subscription to do, and there's a different job that subscriptions aren't actually getting us to, but we don't recognize there's another option that will help us get the job we want to hire this to do.
Yeah, I think the other option is to pay as you go or pay for a package of grain tokens, as we say, the parlance in our platform. And but it does the same thing. And you have the mop that still is a mop. So in this case, you're still watching video, and whether that video is a stand-up comedy or an independent film or a music video or a podcast video, you're still using money to compensate a creator for their video content. So in both cases.
One thing I was thinking about before, as you were originally describing this, made me think of an old fashioned arcade. We'd go in, we'd change our money for tokens, and then we'd go play the tokens. And the result of the play, we'd get something to consume. And it sounds like what you're talking about with grains is similar. You take your money, you get some grains, and you go consume. And that's also the fun part. Fun and consumption have been shortened in that. Another thing that just came to mind, though, is I'm thinking about these micropayments is like a street performer. For a while, we lived in Boulder for 6 years, and every summer, and in Seattle, they have this too. In the big markets, there are certain areas that street performers will come in and extra vendors will come in addition to whatever else is going on, and they have their guitar case open, or they have their violin case open, or they have something that you can buy right there on a small stand as you're walking by. How does what you're doing relate to that? Because I'm trying to think what are some other things if we're going to help the education process that we might be doing today that we don't even understand that helps and aligns to your business model.
Sure. From a big picture point of view, our premise is that monetizing content isn't greed, it's fairness. So making money from your video content, there's nothing wrong with it. You spend time on it. Oftentimes people spend a lot of money creating their video content. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. A lot of people feel like everything should be free if it's digital content. Like they know they'd have to pay for a book. They know they'd have to pay for even a ticket to a concert. But if they want anything did with ones and zeros to their computer, then that should just all be free. That's part of the psychological hurdle I'm describing. So yes, this overall umbrella concept is that monetizing your time and money spent making content and creativity is fairness. That's fairness. But if you are going to monetize, there are four basic ways that the monetization has always happened. One is an advertiser-based monetization. We all know what that is. That's everything from the old NBC broadcast channel with commercials to YouTube. If you don't have the premium YouTube, you watch ads and that kind of thing. So there's plenty of advertiser-based, but the payments are quite low. You get much less money than you would in the other models. So advertiser-based monetization, subscription-based monetization that we've already talked about. There's a third version, which is just straight up donations. And you referenced that with the guy with the guitar case playing in Boulder. So, well, there's online versions of the donations, obviously, as well. Buy Me a Coffee is a platform that's just all about that. And then this fourth model is the one that we primarily do at VidaFair, which is the TVOD is the modern term. It used to be called pay-per-view. You're basically paying a la carte. Or again, if you buy a package of our tokens, then you pay less per rental. But so those are the four ways. We also have part of that donation method too, meaning that we have a facility where you can pay to watch a video clip like a podcast or a music video, like I mentioned. You can pay to watch it and just rent it for yourself. You can also gift it to someone, which means you pay for someone else to see it, and then you can send it to them, and they don't have to pay anything, but the creator has been paid by you. But there's another way called a sponsor button we have on our platform where you can pay for the next 20 people or the next 50 people or the next 100 people to watch it for free because you love the content so much, you are sponsoring it, and it's a form of a gift also. That's the form that third version. That's a form of someone having their guitar case open and getting donations from, as a street performer. I guess those versions 3 and 4 we've combined in our platform, meaning the kind of pay-per-view along with the gift process. We do not do ads, and we also do not do subscriptions. The first two methods I talked about. And I'll tell you something else incidentally. Once you do open yourself up to ads, there's people don't think about the downside to that. It's not just people's time, and you could arguably are wasting people's time and making them sit through ads. But you also then, what happens, it creeps in, is there's a censorship aspect to, even if you're just saying something that's mildly controversial, there may be advertisers that object to having their ad next to your video, and you're a podcaster and you have a controversial view about something. Yeah. And so then it creates this chilling effect where stuff gets demonetized on YouTube often, and then people are afraid to talk about certain things or they omit certain words. And I just would point that out too as a downside of the advertiser model. In addition to the fact it's a much less money, but yes.
Where I'm at in that, one of the things that I really like is the independent model and being able to connect directly to the creator without anybody in between. And one of the things that this model does is just that. It's almost like it's close to seeing somebody on the street and having that, or buying somebody a coffee for getting their picture or watching their documentary or their video on your platform. But it's also, I feel like I am giving everything I've got to give or choose to pay is going to that creator. And that's a different mentality too. And I like that. I like the bypassing of all the steps in between because in this case, it's not necessary. Makes me think of an art gallery, right? An art gallery is kind of like that. You can go in, you can see all of the artists that are there. You'll see a little bit of their work. And then if you buy something, great. And if you don't buy something, you now know about them. And maybe you see them someplace else. Or maybe you get to a place you're like, I can go get that thing now. And off you go directly to the creator.
And to further that point, in the era of social media, there are many creators with, of course, thousands and some have millions of followers, whether it's on Instagram or whatever their platform, TikTok, X, etc., whatever their platform is, Facebook can have all of these followers. Imagine just you can go. You don't need a middleman. You don't need a gatekeeper. You don't need an agent to approve it or a manager. You don't need a studio to say it's okay. You can make content that you want. Just again, no middleman. You just go right to your fans and market it to them. And if they like it, they rent it, and you get money directly from that through our platform. I mentioned censorship. I will say we do have a couple of rules. We have a no porn rule, for example, on our site. No copyright infringement. You can't just pick up a movie that you just pretend like it's your own. And there are no doxing, no threats, and no child abuse. Those are actually our entire 5 flags that I've told you. But it's not censorship like you would find on many other platforms, including YouTube, certainly. But if you wanted to be on Netflix or Amazon Prime or HBO or any of these others, it's much more of you've got to pass committee after committee of vetting people that just not exist on VidaFair.
Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I thrive on your feedback and engagement. You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Dewell. This is your program for strategizing long-term success while diving deep into what the right work is for your business right now.
You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, hosted by Jess Dewell, a nationally recognized strategic growth consultant. She works with business owners and executives to integrate just 2 elements that guide business through the ups and downs of growth. Number 1, know what work is necessary. Number 2, do all the work possible. Schedule a complimentary consultation to find out more at reddirection.com.
You're listening to Uncharted, Beat Subscription Fatigue with the Right Content Solution with Bob Bowdon. Now back to the program. Being not the mainstream in the way that you're approaching this has its challenges. Even being in the mainstream, if that was the case, I'd be asking you the same question because it also has challenges. I want to know your unique challenges that you have faced providing something in the way others do, but doing it very differently in a whole different model. What's one of the biggest challenges that you've had to face?
We launched in the content space of independent filmmakers. I have a background in that as a documentary filmmaker. I know that world a little better. And so we launched in that space. But I've always believed the more powerful market for us would be what I would just call the YouTube content space, meaning podcasts or a cooking show or a comedian or a music video, like I said, or a cool kid who rides a skateboard, or some just yoga instructors, or just people that have financial advice, YouTubers and they come to our site and they will see the fact that we launched it in the independent film space and assume that that is the only thing that our site is about, and that it's not for them. I found it difficult, a challenge to explain to this other categories, a bunch of these other categories of content creators. So we're all about you guys too. Don't just look at what's there right now as some sort of evidence of what the next upload has to be.
Amazon did it, and I'm gonna just totally do this because when they started, they just went and competed with bookstores to be online.
Sure.
And
Exactly.
and I don't even know how they did it. Do you know, you and I both grew up through Amazon selling books and then not selling books anymore and selling everything, right?
Oh.
We went through that. And then when they hit groceries, I even remember that. I remember when they went to not books and everything. And then when they added groceries, totally blew my mind twice. I never thought a company would do that. And they're capitalizing on their infrastructure, which I know you have some really good strengths. So now I'm curious, what are your strengths that you then brought to this problem to help shift some of that, or are shifting right now?
What are our strengths?
Your
You're asking?
strengths, like what? Yeah, like Amazon being a fulfillment center, not a bookstore.
Well, I'll tell you, one strength is that anyone who, yeah, first of all, yeah, no, I found that transition. And that's the example I give, by the way, all the time. And I have problems with Amazon in other ways in terms of they sometimes put it this way. I have come across people who are of the opinion
Ugh,
that Amazon sometimes doesn't stop Chinese firms from taking IP, intellectual property, and it's without that they shouldn't be taking, and that Amazon offer in this opinion that I've seen, Amazon is not doing a lot to oppose some of those Chinese firms from taking that IP without paying for it. But that said, yes, I give the example of Amazon all the time. Like exactly, if you're old enough to remember, it was books, and then it added like the same way we started at just independent films, and now we're trying to branch out. I think first of all, they were by then a much bigger company than we are, so there's that. I'm sure they had probably many millions to market. But I also bet I would think that they didn't maybe go initially to, oh, we're just going to sell everything. They
right.
probably found a few particular retailers or manufacturers that they said, okay, let's just launch with you. You're not a bookmaker, but you do something else, consumer electronics or something. They probably started with targeted other products and then went from there.
Probably, yeah. What are your strengths that helped you overcome this challenge to be able to attract more makers and creators?
Okay, so one of the strings, of course, is that our platform works right now. So anyone in the sound of my voice could download the VidaFair iPhone app, the Android app, or go to our website, and you can look and see products that are right now for meaning videos that you could rent right now, and you could create an account, click on a button, pay an a la carte fee of 99 cents or $1.99 or something. Know that you're supporting a content creator and rather than some anonymous company somewhere. That creator will make money every single time anyone listening to my voice rents any of that content. And in other words, a strength that we bring is even those who are not in the space of independent film could see how it works, can demo it themselves, can understand it fully before they ever do anything with their own content. And then that way they'll better be able to explain to their fans and followers on social media, here's how you do it. Here's my new music video. And all you do is you download the app and you can, by the way, put it on a flat screen TV through what's called Google Chromecast or Apple AirPlay. So they can demo it and try it and see that it works, see that the credit card deduction happens exactly as it's advertised, et cetera. So I think that's a strength that we have. Like as we're genre shifting, there's not a lot of imaginative jump required to say, okay, if this video were a music video instead of a short film or a feature film or something, like obviously there's not a lot of you can see it would just be a different video streaming the same way.
Trying to think where I wanted to go. I actually wrote down that I wanted to go back, but we talked a little bit about the norm of thinking. We've talked about the 4 ways that there are to monetize. We've talked about the strengths of your platform for all digital content makers of any kind. What's your biggest lesson as the CEO of VidaFair?
One story I like to tell is ways we've wasted money on marketing that didn't work at all. And so one being that we went to a big trade show and paid a lot of money for a giant booth that had dozens of employees, and we had giveaways, and we had all this stuff. It was almost like we were trying to pretend we were a big company when we really were a small company. And people don't care these days. It's almost like I think what we learned was they're actually more persuaded by hearing from me. So some of our explainer videos, by the way, which is another thing we've learned along the way too, is to produce videos ourselves to say, here's a step-by-step way to use our platform instead of just assuming people would read through
Mm.
the directives and read the prompts or whatever. No, give them a video, show them how it's done by on a screen. What we've learned is lately, like I start some of the explainer videos literally on my couch saying, hi, I'm Bob Bowdon. I'm the founder of VidaFair coming to you from my couch. And here is a step, here's this, here's that, or here's some advice on how to market your videos once they're uploaded or et cetera. people they prefer that. They prefer the authenticity. They prefer, I'm a guy named Bob and I live in Austin and I'm on my couch right now telling you about my startup company to help creators make money. They prefer that than us trying to seem like we're some big company with a giant budget and signs everywhere at a huge trade show. Yeah, they don't care about that's an old school way to think, is what the lesson was.
You tapped into more of who you are and how you do your work.
Yeah, peek behind the curtain like on The Wizard of Oz or something. Let them see the real workings. And I'm a person. I did comedy for the Onion News Network, by the way, as an on-camera reporter of fake news stories. I've been a television reporter for Bloomberg TV and other places. I'm a regular person with a media career, and I basically said, this is what I would want if I were releasing my documentary film now. Like have a blank sheet of paper, and how would you design a platform to help creators make money where they set their own fee? Airbnb, if you want to rent out a condo, you set your own fee for what you want to make when someone rents your condo. And some people have other problems with Airbnb. That's fine. I'm not here to debate that. But the idea of let the person set their own fee. If they set it too high, that's on them.
Yeah.
But no one else knows what they spent on a particular video or what the demand is, et cetera. Let them set their. So if I felt like we're creating blank sheet of paper, creating the fairness is in our name, as we like to VidaFair, which is, by the way, a double entendre, I like to say. So it means both video affair, VidaFair, and also VidaFair, like life that's fair, VidaFair. So anyway, so the idea is to let them set their own fee, make it completely transparent, don't trap people in subscriptions, which is, as I feel, is a low-key way to take money for services you don't give because maybe you're hoping they forget they've subscribed or something. And anyway, so I designed the platform that I would want as a creator. In the fairest, any of our creators, put it this way, we own no content. Everyone has complete control of their own content that they've uploaded. They can disable a video anytime they want. They can close their account anytime they want. They can see exactly how many rentals have happened of their content anytime they want. And we have no contracts that they sign. We want to just present a site that's useful to our content creators and the people that rent their work, and not lock anyone into anything. I believe in persuasion, not coercion. It's a big theme through my life. So if someone's not happy with our service, they should be able to walk away. And why should we want to have any kind of contract with them? They get paid each time their work is rented. They keep it up exactly as long as they want. And that's how we work.
So one of your values is fairness. You've talked about fairness a lot so far in our conversation. What are some of the other core values that show up in your day-to-day work that are important to you, Bob, and to VidaFair?
We're responsive. If someone sends us a contact request or asks a question or help notice on our contact page, and I like to say we always respond within 24 hours, but it's often much faster than that. So I think we're extremely responsive. We are an open book, essentially. So yes, so our terms and conditions is quite clear in terms of us that we don't own any of your work. And that to the extent is if something does get taken down, for example, because like I said, there are, copyright violations alleged, or again, we have a no porn rule or something like that. We are also completely transparent about that. We'll say, here's the decision, here's why, and that's it. But there's no situation where anyone then has to feel like we're doing anything that's not absolutely. Yeah. So transparency. In other words, that's a long-winded answer to say transparency, both in terms of response time and just our rules, how we work our rules. It's almost like I almost want to ask you, how would you set up a monetization platform for video if it's any different than this? And I'll tell you one other thing. When we were early on, and because we're getting a little into the weeds here, which I love. Good. Early on, we based it on a percentage. And most people, in fact, a lot of times in interviews just like this, Jess, people will say, what percentage do you take? Yeah, I understand your content creators get most of the money each time a rental happens. What percentage do you take? Well, that is how we began the platform, at least building it. It wasn't live yet. And I was talking about it with some people online somewhere in a group somewhere. And somebody said, I wish I had his name still. A guy said to me, he goes, why should you like if there are two content creators and they both have videos of the same duration and one charges more than the other, why do you deserve more for one than the You're doing the same service. If there are two 30-minute videos, you're storing two 30-minute videos, you're having to stream two 30-minute videos. But if one guy charges $5 and the other guy charges $3, you're not doing any more for the $5 price video than why do you as a platform deserve more money because someone else charges more for their work if the service you're doing is the same based on the duration of the content? And I thought about that and I thought, this guy is right. I thought, yes, we actually would not deserve more money just because someone else charges more. So we should not base it as a percentage. So what we actually do is have a platform fee that is purely based on the duration of the content. And then the creator fee that they set themselves gets added to the platform fee for the sum of that is the retail price. So the retail price is not based on a percentage simply because it's fairer, to go back to that word, to not charge people more if we're not doing more. We should base our prices on our costs. And our costs are not affected if one person charges a larger creator fee than another.
I'm your host, Jess, Dewell, and we're getting down to business on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Focused on growth? Listen to more programs like this which support the challenges and opportunities you are working with right now.
Come on.
Search Bold Business Podcast for the key terms at reddirection.com or your preferred podcast listening app.
You're listening to Uncharted, beat subscription fatigue with the right content solution with Bob Bowdon. Now back to the program. Early in my career, I did the operations for an e-commerce platform back when PayPal was brand new. And we were actually a competitor to PayPal, but on a different kind of scale. It was on specifically software, so you get into one niche. You go even further, and they were independent software developers, which is why one of the reasons I got really excited about our conversation, because I'm like, oh, yeah, these independent software creators were an underserved market that couldn't necessarily, and this was back when SaaS, it wasn't even SaaS and then try before you buy. It was actually shareware back in the day. So dating myself too, this is a long journey of this absolute evolution along the way. And when we were acquired, my job was to grow the business. We were acquired right before the dot-com crash. My job to get the whole earnout. Yeah. Yes, and the sale price was really big, but to get the sale price, I had to hit sales goals. So there was an earnout portion of that I had to figure out how to navigate through. And the other people that were in the day-to-day with me were helpful, and then they fell off, and then we still had this earnout thing. And so I was like, what am I going to do about this? And at that time, we were a percentage of sales. And I think the whole time, even after the acquisition, I stayed and I managed a handful of companies like mine. I helped buy them and I managed them, and they were all a percent of business, but they started out differently. And so as you were speaking, I'm thinking, because you asked me a question, how would I price it? And I'm trying to think through that a little because that is my exact mostly related experience. And I drew a graph here on my notes, and one of a grid, and one axis is cost up and down, and the other is value. And what I found in running many of the same things that had similar price models, there was a minimum plus a percentage. And all of them did that. And looking back, and actually one of them did just had a flat fee. No matter what you have, a flat fee. There were a lot of different ways that we did business. So coming back to based off of the values you have of fairness, it makes sense you would continue to understand what is fair for everybody. And I use the word winfinity. And so it seems based off of fair being the core, everything you're doing for winfinity, it benefits me, it benefits my creators, it benefits my users, it benefits people who haven't even discovered us yet, and makes us attractive. As bigger buying experiences change, we become a viable option for people on a budget or people who want to try this out, or right? All of those things. So I like the Winfinity piece of what you've done. And I would say the only limit in that is that, so all these companies I had, some charged a flat fee, $3. Others, the one that mine purchased, the average per sale was, it was a minimum of $2 or 20%. So it didn't matter if it was 20% of $10 or 20% of $2,000. And what we found was the our average transaction price was 10 times the next closest person's the next closest business, I said person, but the next closest entity's transaction thing. So what we were looking at was, wow, we could tell what is the price point that is most attractive to each of these platforms. And that was really interesting. So I don't know the right value. I would say, so coming back, I just have questions for you. Are you on the right track? You've got to be, because it's fair and it's based in fairness. And I see nothing wrong with how that is. And then I would say, so some of the questions to ask are you attracting content creators that go and align with that flat fee? And are you missing some potential value for other people who think value based instead of instance based? And I don't know the answer to that.
I understand. What is
Like per view, pay per view, right? So meaning I'm going to just have a platform fee, because I'm guessing that's per transaction. I don't know what it is. Whatever it is per transaction, that's our platform fee. Or it's going to be, this is how much you pay us every month, and whatever that is. It sounds like, because you don't like subscriptions,
exactly?
it's per transaction.
Exactly, because I feel like that is what our costs are. So every business has direct costs, and they also have overhead.
Yep.
And so,
But then they also have the amount that's left over, which sometimes you need as profit for whatever reason, and sometimes you need as profit for reinvestment in development and expansion.
oh sure, oh sure. So there are different businesses that have different ratios of the degree to which the overhead, what percentage of their costs is overhead versus costs related to that transaction. But it seems to me that the best way to do things is to align your pricing as close as possible to the costs. And there's a different philosophy, and I think this might be what you're getting at. Some people say the customer is willing to pay for the customer is more amenable to paying for, maybe in a way that's not as direct cost related. Like, you can maybe get more money, in other words, out of the customer if you charge them for other things that are not directly related to your costs, that are some sort.
Well, what's one of the things that's directly related to costs, right? I know what we were facing and this was, of course, technology is still changing really fast. But even then, so the company that I was a part of, it was called RegNow. Long time ago. RegNow was the first technology platform that accepted money that had an affiliate program. Isn't that interesting? Even though it wasn't official in the sense of we were collecting the money and paying all that, that came. But we had a whole bunch of clients going, we're doing all these special deals. And so I went to the core developer of the time, who actually happens to be my husband, and we were talking about it. And he kept saying, no, I can't do it for all of us. So I'm not doing it for anybody. And I kept bugging and I said, look, we're having enough people of interest here. Can you see? And we were able to take the time to put in the work, to do the research and development necessary to figure it out, and did it. And we charged no extra for it. And it was actually one of the reasons we ended up having a whole bunch of new accounts come on, was because we didn't change our pricing. We didn't charge for this new feature. We actually figured out how to bring something that a few people wanted that we could make money from if we wanted to. We didn't make money from those few people. We figured out how to do it across the platform, which brought it to everybody, which was more attractive to the people who had something to sell that we could help because it was our niche. And I feel like you might be doing some of those, but that's how we were using the pricing. So I'm hearing some subjectiveness, and I'm hearing some very interesting value-based approaches that are all right. And I don't know if we would do it the same today. I actually don't think we would, specifically because back then it was hard to get a merchant account. There was no Square or Stripe or any you had to have a merchant account, and it was so hard. We were actually a middle person to allow people that couldn't get it on their own, or it was too expensive for them to have it on their own, to be able to do this. So
Well,
we had other
just
things
say
that
this. So
had to be done. Yeah.
this is, I think, also pertinent to this is that an example. So there's a film streaming site that's been around a long time called Vimeo, right?
Yep.
And so they're actually a publicly traded company. They are, and their business model has, I think, changed.
A lot. I used to use them and I don't anymore. They outpriced me.
Oh, I'd love to hear. Okay. I'd love.
Keep telling me and then we'll come back to that. Oh, yeah. I'm very sad.
The point is, they some time ago, and I'd have to re-up myself on researching their current pricing. It changed somewhat, and I'm a little foggy on it, I'll admit. But I know that at one point in time, not long ago, a couple of years ago, they had what's called a pro level account, which was, I think, $125 a year. And you needed to join that and subscribe to that to upload any content to be monetized at all. And they had other fees beyond that, and they were separate from that. But I think that when I looked at that kind of, we could do that, right? We could say, oh, you're going to upload something? All right, here's your $125 or $200 or whatever. We pick some number. This is the annual subscription to be able to upload anything to VidaFair. We could do that. And there's plenty of people that would pay for it. They would think, okay, that's just that amount. I'll just spend that. But then what they know is there's a large percentage of small little filmmakers that never make that money back. They basically paid that subscription. That money disappeared. It was a hope chest kind of wishing kind of thing. And what happened? In many of those cases, the company didn't have to serve very many streams, and they barely, what is the cost of data storage? Oh, that gets cheaper and cheaper all the time. So Vimeo was basically making a bunch of money just on little filmmakers who were hoping their film would do well. Their films didn't do well. And just the subscription for just, what does it cost Vimeo to actually open an account for this person? Virtually nothing.
No,
Really,
well,
they
it
were-
does cost for storage. And I know they changed their model to serve on demand related to storage because that's what got me. I was under I don't remember all the details, so I might get this wrong, but I'm going to be engineers.
Yeah, what is a terabyte hard drive cost these days, and how much of well, is one of these short films going to even be
Then you have the how much can you fit on it? How much is it going to be used? You still have to have electricity to it. You have to have it on demand regardless. You have to also then have cybersecurity around it, which, by the way, I think that's probably the still so wild westy that's an unknown factor of data protection and integrity. So the more stuff you have, the more assets you have that are actually creating a real liability on the balance sheet for a company. And so that's a pretty high risk.
In other words,
And those are just some of the things that I see.
yes. So I'm not saying there are not costs to store data. I'm just saying if that really were the reason they were charging to open these accounts, then at least index it to how much data was being stored. The point is they weren't doing that at all. You could
So whatever, I'll
find-
just tell you this, whatever model I was on of theirs, like I said, I don't
Yeah.
remember anything about it. I paid probably $3,600 a year. And with this new model that came out, I was paying $3,600 a month.
Oh my
I was forced to move because my budget did not allow for that.
Oh my gosh. So that's
Right.
insane to me. And
And
that
so
is
we had to make a change. And it was the hardest change I made because it was the company I loved the most out of all the technology stack we had.
sure.
Wasn't that crazy?
Look, there's old content of mine that's on Vimeo that's still there from way back in the day, and it's great that it's there. I bring up the point to say you can get people to sometimes pay money in a way that's not directly connected to your costs because you can just get them to pay it. And they will, and I think that the fairer thing to do is to, as much as you can, we all have overhead, we all have other kinds of, we have to pay programmers, et cetera. But as much as you can get and we should be profitable, we should basically have our prices be larger than what our costs are, our revenue be larger than our costs. But as much as you can tie your pricing to what your actual costs are, the fairer your business model is.
I'm going to challenge a little, and it might not be a direct challenge, but here's what I would say. If I have had enough experience to be able to come into an organization and fix a problem in 5 minutes that took me 25 years to be able to do in 5 minutes, you're only paying, you think it's the fairest thing to do to only pay for the 5 minutes, not all of the experience that allowed me to find it that way, that fast?
I don't disagree with that example, but that's a different kind of situation. In other words, the cost of hiring a cardiologist to fix my heart or something, or the cost of hiring I don't know, a lawyer if I'm arrested or something. Yeah, you would have to pay more than you would pay. Yeah, those people charge more based on their experience and their expertise. That's absolutely.
But
And
how do you take into account rising labor costs? I know you're probably taking advantage of technology and all the technology all the technology things are there. I have had last year alone, I had 4 pieces of technology. This is not including the conversation we were already having. 4 pieces of technology, more than it was a 200% or more increase in pricing. And I didn't ask a whole lot of questions, just was something like out of the blue, 4 pieces of my technology stack happen to do this thing. And when I look a little closer, there's a lot of reasons for that. Some are all conjecture, it doesn't even matter. Some I agree with, some I don't agree with. Regardless of what the decision was, it happened. And there are costs that have to happen. So how many times have you raised your cost from your flat fee, Bob?
0 times.
Okay. You've
Great
been able
start.
to
Yeah,
use technology to keep everything status quo. I'm impressed.
thank you. We're not 20 years old either, where we are about function on a functional basis, more about 2 years old.
Yeah.
I would say it's maybe less of a brag than you think, but still, I
I don't know. I think in this day and age, the fact you made it 2 years without a price increase is pretty awesome.
thank you. But still, that said, yeah, no, I'm in the camp of set your pricing based on your costs, and then you have a profit, have a margin. Profit margin is good. That's fine. But I think that charging for other things just because you can get people to pay for it is, to me, maybe it's a more of a short-term vision for how to grow the business. You end up with more fans and devotees and evangelists if people feel like you're not pricing in a way that, just because you can, so to speak.
Oh, this is interesting. I didn't know I was going to say this. I would also say that it is complete in alignment with who your customer is. And so it's more than the profit.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement
Oh, yeah.
to make on your path about you?
Oh, no, yeah. And thanks for that. Thanks for the softball. Listen, I feel I'm at the risk of sounding grandiose or self-congratulatory. I feel like allowing people to make money from their work, at creative work, making videos, whatever the kind of video it is a noble pursuit. As I pat myself on the back and our team on the back, it's actually a good thing. It's a democratic sort of small d kind of pursuit to help people monetize their work in a way that's fair, where they set their own fee. And I like the idea of a world where people don't have to just wait for some big company like a television network or a streaming service to anoint them as the kind of next big thing or something, or I don't know, hired for a talk show or something like that. Like the idea that anyone can create their own podcast these days, and then if they're popular enough and have an audience, they can make money from it. That's a great thing for just the idea of just the concept of open dialogue and creative ideas and free speech and all of those things that I believe in.
Creating access for people to connect with those that will benefit from what they are making and putting together and producing seems it always seems like there's an underserved market there, and it feels like you are tapping into and serving that market. Am I on track here?
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, especially look at music. It's so hard. There were recording artists used to make money from CDs and stuff and cassette tapes and stuff and vinyl a lot. How much are they doing that anymore? They basically have to tour to make any money. Why? What if they don't come to your town? Like, why can't it be possible that a musician makes a music video, and if they have a million followers or 10,000 followers on Instagram or on TikTok or some other platform, why can't they allow their fans to support them through renting their music videos? I think helping people like musicians make money in a way that's become damn near impossible is a facet of what you just described.
So lower barrier to entry for them.
Yeah, skip the middleman, go right to the fan base, and create content that they want. And if they do want it, give them a way that they can pay for that content and let the creator benefit. That's really our business model in a nutshell.
So what makes it bold? What makes it bold to continue to go after technologies and create technologies that reduce the barrier to entry and get more people connected?
One thing that makes it bold is this is not a model that's ever been done before. We don't see anything like this. Probably the closest is Patreon, which is a subscription platform. But at least that's a way for an artist to. A lot of YouTubers will have a podcast and they'll say, okay, this is our free show, but if you're a super fan, you can subscribe to our Patreon, and we have a show every Saturday at noon that comes out on our Patreon, and that's a way that they can have people subscribe and make money. And we say, if you're already making that paywall content on a subscription platform, you repurpose the same content on a pay-per-view platform like VidaFair, and that's a way that you can let the fan and follower decide how they want to support. Usually when you give people more ways to buy something, you end up selling more of that thing because you let them decide what's the best model for them.
Every single time I have a conversation, I take away something that I want to share with 25 people. I know when you're listening to this podcast, you're also listening for that and will have something that you want to share. In the comments, I would like for you to engage with us. What is that thing that you want to tell 25 people from this program? Here's why it's important. It's important because, yeah, there are going to be how-tos. Yes, there are going to be steps. Yes, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wrote that down. I wish I wasn't doing this and I could actually take action on that right now. But guess what? You're not. So engage right now, because that one thing you want to share with others will be the thing that you can figure out how to incorporate in your business, in your workflow, in your style tomorrow.
Wow! Jess hosts the Bold Business Podcast to provide insights for building a resilient, profitable business by deeply understanding your growth strategy, ensuring market relevance, and your company's future. It is bold to deeply understand your growth strategy with your host, Jess Dewell. Get more information about how to drive solutions and reset your growth mindset at reddirection.com. Thank you for joining us, and special thanks to our post-production team at The Scott Treatment.